surrounded by gear, this usually means I'm doing a packing list video. So today I will tell you what I took with me in order to summit Mount Kilimanjaro. Before we start, I need to point out that I was trekking the 8-day lasting Lemosho route at the end of September, beginning of October. This means I needed to prepare for warm temperatures down in the rainforest area, which means about 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, as well as moderate temperatures, which about 15 to 10 degrees Celsius while we were hiking, starting from the second day. And for freezing temperatures. In the camps it was usually at night about 0 to -5 degrees Celsius, and the summit day is actually always the coldest day, and there we had about -10 degrees Celsius to -15 degrees Celsius. This means this packing list is actually suitable for most seasons and all routes. So without further ado, let's jump in. Let's start off with the bags. As you know, all treks up to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro are organized tours, which means you will have porters that carry most of the gear, especially the camping gear and your personal gear, such as clothes you need in the camp. So first thing you will need is of course a big bag, and for that I took a duffel bag with me, this yellow waterproof duffel bag, which is a good thing, so if the weather conditions are really harsh, your stuff stays dry. And this is where all the stuff goes in which you don't need at daytime when you trek. So especially like your sleeping bag and your clothes, all your toiletries. So this goes all in here. For that I have this 60-liter duffel bag, which I highly recommend because this is also a good size which the porter can stuff into his bag. Next is of course a trekking bag. I actually took a really big one because I have all my camera equipment with me, and this also needs to fit about 3 liters of water, as well as food for the trek and additional layers you would need for the day. So therefore I took this fairly large one, which is also waterproof, and this is also something I would recommend. Take a trekking backpack which is waterproof. If you don't have a waterproof backpack, I'd recommend taking one of those things which you can just put on the backpack when it rains. To organize all your stuff inside your big bag, I highly recommend taking these packing cubes with you. They're really handy and they make it really easy to organize all your stuff. So I had 3 of those packing cubes with me. One for underwear, one for the base layer, and one for the shell layer. On top of that, I also highly recommend taking some normal bags with you, where you can put in, for example, your shoes for the camp, as well as your dirty clothes. And last but not least, of course, also Ziplocs. In this case, I took a Ziploc bag for my passport. In most cases, you stay at the same hotel before and after the trip. This also means you can actually store some of your luggage in a luggage room. So now we talk about the stuff you need before and after the trek. This also depends on how many extra days you spend before and after the trek. And for that, I have a pair of socks, some underwear, a long sleeve for the flight, as well as a pair of jeans. And on top of that, if you plan to stay longer, for example for safari, I highly recommend also taking a mosquito net with you for the nights, as well as insect repellent, because as you know, Tanzania is a high-risk zone for malaria, so it's always good to protect yourself. Also good to have is a power adapter in order to charge your batteries and all your devices before and after the trek. This is a Skyroam global hotspot, which you can actually use in Tanzania in order to stay connected. I'd also recommend packing some extra t-shirts, but again, this depends on how long you stay before and after you trek. Let's talk about clothes, and here we're starting with the base and the mid layer. For that, I took with me, of course, underwear. In that case, 3 pairs of trekking socks, and I reserved one pair just for the summit day, one pair of normal socks, and then depending on how many days you spent on the mountain, I had about 5 boxes with me, as well as long underwear, and for that I actually recommend to take 2 pairs with you. Again, you would need 2 pairs actually for the day you are summiting, depending on how cold it is. Then of course hiking shirts. For that I recommend breathable sport shirts. This is actually what I use when I go running. Yeah, I had 2 pairs with me, as well as a fleece jacket, which is really important. This is one of the items which I used most actually trekking, because this you can use when you have a break on the mountain, when it's getting a little bit colder, as well as in the camp. Really important, get a fleece jacket. This is called a bandana or a buff. This is actually what you can use as a scarf or as a protection from the sun. Speaking of, you should of course also take a pair of sunglasses with you. One of the most important items is of course a pair of good hiking shoes. I recommend getting waterproof shoes, and if you don't have hiking boots at home and you buy new ones, make sure to buy them well in advance to break them in properly. Additionally, I recommend getting gaiters, which are especially important for the summit day. And then, of course, speaking of the shell layer, you would need proper trekking pants. I have a pair of thin trekking pants. This is especially good for the time when you are in the rainforest zone. And then later on, trekking pants which are a little bit thicker, so they keep you warm. Also important to have rain gear. These are rain pants which I can actually put on top of my trekking pants, and rain jacket. Again, my bright orange one which sticks out in photos and also protects me from the water, of course. Another really important jacket is a down jacket. The good thing about down jackets is that you can fold them and make them really, really small, but they keep you warm, and at a certain point on this trek, this down jacket will be one of your most important items, because it gets really cold at night. So you will wear this jacket mostly in the camp and on the summit day. Next is trekking poles. A lot of people actually use them for the whole trek, but I was especially happy to have them for the summit day. Then when it gets colder, you need of course gloves. First thin gloves, and then when it gets really cold, you need your winter gloves to keep your hands warm. A proper scarf and a warm hat for the summit day. And if you want, you can also take something like that with you. It's actually what I have from skiing. This is what I used actually for the summit day. When the blizzard came in, I was really happy to have that one. And for the days when it's really sunny, it's always good to protect your face from the sun. So I took a cap with me as well, which you can actually see in my documentary. I wore that most of the time. And for all the other body parts, of course, sunscreen. As I stated in the preparation video, it's really important to have enough water with you. And in order to take about 3 liters of water with you every day, you need of course bottles for that. So I had this 1 liter bottle plus a 2.5 liter camelback with me. Let's talk about all the stuff you need when you are at camp. First of all, of course, a proper sleeping bag. I remind you, it is really cold at night. So we had up to -5 degrees Celsius. In the cold seasons, it can go up to -10, -15 degrees Celsius. So take a sleeping bag which you feel comfortable at -10 degrees Celsius. On top of that, I also recommend getting a liner, especially when you rent a sleeping bag. This also has the advantage that it adds a little bit to the temperature. So this, for example, here adds about 2 degrees Celsius. Then to sleep well at night, when it is loud in the camp, I recommend to get earplugs. Next is a microfiber towel. Yeah, well, there is not really a shower on the mountain, but at least you have water and you wash yourself, so this will do for those days. And it dries really fast. This is why a microfiber towel is always a good choice. Then of course, wet wipes and hand sanitizer. Once you arrive at camp, you will be really happy if you brought your extra camp shoes. For that I had sneakers with me, really light sneakers, and it was a relief to get in those shoes after a day of hiking in my hiking boots. A headlamp, which you not only need for the night you're hiking up to the summit, but also for all the nights you are in camp. So get a proper headlamp and take some extra batteries with you. For toiletries, I brought my own toiletry bag, and then it is of course toothpaste, toothbrush, some cream, some deo roll-on and some deo, aka mountain shower. Then hand cream, because the conditions on the mountains are really harsh. And then of course toilet paper. And I already stated hand sanitizer, wet wipes. In matters of medicine, of course it's always best to talk with your doctor in order to make sure which medicine you need to take with you, especially when it comes down to malaria prophylaxis. In my case, I had with me some headache pills. In that case, it was ibuprofen, which was my savior on the summit day, some Imodium, and then Malarone, which is my malaria standby medicine, which I luckily didn't need. Gadgets in that case is everything which is non-camera related. So for example, smartphone, which I took with me in order to do Instagram stories. Then of course a battery pack. This one is actually a solar battery pack. So actually I can charge this battery pack with solar power. It's not as good, but it does the job actually. So with that I could charge all my devices on the mountain, even my batteries for the camera. Then you shouldn't forget, of course, a charging cable for your devices. I also had with me some noise cancelling earphones, which is nice for the camp. And then another pro tip is to take some hand warmers with you. Of course, it's good to warm your hands with them, but also in order to keep your batteries warm at night. Because when the batteries are cold, they lose charge. And when you use those, they don't. Additionally, of course, you can also take a smartwatch with you in order to track your hike or to see which altitude you're at. Camera gear. I actually had two cameras with me. My main camera was actually the Sony a7S Mark II with a 24 to 240 millimeter lens. So this is what I used for most of the B-roll shots, because there I could zoom in. I had a really high range with that one. And the other one is the Sony RX100 Mark V. Because of the flip screen, I actually used it mostly for the vlogging parts where I'm speaking to the camera. But also in the camp, it was really handy to have it in my pocket and to just like pull it out when I saw something which I wanted to capture. Really good camera. I will talk more about cameras actually in my next video, where I'm focusing about all the cameras I'm taking with me on my travels. But for Mount Kilimanjaro I had those two, plus of course SD cards and a waterproof SD card holder. I think I had about 6 SD cards with me, which was actually sufficient for this trek. Then, because it's such a long trek where you don't have the possibility to really charge, I had, because I had this solar charger, I took with me about 6 batteries for each of the cameras. Then I had this little bag with me where I put all the batteries inside, and then a heating pack, and then I put it into my sleeping bag actually in order to keep it warm. And that actually was a good strategy, because my batteries, they were holding the charge for a long time. Another really good thing to have is a clip for your backpack. This is one from Peak Design, so you actually mount the camera on that thing like you do on a tripod, and then you can actually clip it in and clip it out as you need it, while having it on the straps of your backpack. Then of course you shouldn't forget something to clean your lens. It's really dusty on the mountain because it's after all a volcano. So I had this guy here with me, and yeah, little lens pen, as well as microfiber towels to wipe off the lens. For the Sony RX100, for the tiny camera, I actually had a little tripod which could fold out like that, which actually did the job when I did some hosting in the camps. And for my big camera, I had this Gorilla Pod with me, so I could put it on the ground when we were hiking and we could get all these shots while hiking. In case you also want to take a DSLR with you, I highly recommend taking a polarizer with you, because the light on the mountain when it's sunny is really harsh. Finally, of course, you shouldn't forget your passport and visas and all the paperwork you would need for the trek. For example, a booking confirmation of your hotel or for your tour operator. And then I also recommend taking something with you which can keep all those things waterproof. So I had in my case a Ziploc bag for my passport, but also for your money and your credit cards, I actually recommend taking a waterproof wallet with you. This one here, for example, can actually also fit your cell phone. Pretty cool. Alright, there we have it. You can find the whole packing list actually on my blog. There's a big list and the link can be found in the description box down below. If you like this video, make sure to share with your friends, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for new travel videos every Thursday. I'll see you next week. Bye!